Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Christopher, bye week. We've gone through another bye week for Texas Tech, 2 this year. Now we're back into the last couple of games of the season for Texas Tech football. We'll get into that, but I want to start on the basketball side of things because I think it's been a lot of fun to see this team through the first 3 games. But I'll let you just kind of take it from what you've seen through the first 3 games of the season for this basketball team.
Yeah, and obviously, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this, this is a team that plays on Monday night against a not a very good Arkansas Pine Bluff team, but be an interesting week for Tech Hoops as they go to Brooklyn.
Yep.
And you play St. Joe's, and then you play either Texas or Syracuse, depending on the result of your first game and the result of the other game there at the Barclays Center. And those are obviously big time opportunities there for your net and RPI and all the stuff that comes with trying to build a resume. But yeah, it's been an interesting start to the season just because you kind of went at it without your full team. And it's you kind of thought when you find out you're not going to have either point guard, you think, okay, you're going to have to play left-handed a little bit, but I thought they handled it extremely well. Chance McMillan and Darion Williams. It's a unique team the way it's been constructed because you do have quite the nucleus that returned. And I think that while everybody gets caught up in all the new pieces, and understandably so in some cases, I think that the returners that kind of elevate and that what you're getting, those guys set they set the standard and all those things. But I mean, I think they'll still continue to tinker with the starting lineup, as I do think that eventually Elijah Hawkins is a starter for you, and then you just got a lot of punch off the bench at this point.
Sure,
is what you've got because you're legit 8 or 9 deep. You've got size off the bench, you've got some scoring off the bench, you've got some experience off the bench. And we haven't even seen the debut of Emily Alaho yet,
right.
And I hate it for him because these games are valuable just to get the kind of minutes as we saw him take quite a few steps. But the lead here is how well they share the ball and how skilled they appear to be.
Yep.
But you certainly found something in JT Toppin. That's the big takeaway because he is a perfect fit / complement to all of the skill and the shooters that you've got. And I think the whole thing can allow Grant McCaslin to do a variety of different things with this lineup. I mean, you can really, I don't know the one concern I would say, I don't know when you'll see that or when it'll pop up. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is like when you maybe play University of Houston, but that's a ways down the road. But if they match up against somebody that's a lot bigger and more physical,
right,
then because you want to play the game. This is a pretty brand to watch.
yeah,
it's I'm going to say this, and I'm not in any way comparing your team to this one, but I used to really admire. Some people didn't like it, but I used to really admire Golden State 5 years ago.
yeah,
When they were kind of in their heyday, because it was such a pretty brand of basketball to watch. It was wildly entertaining. They just are very unselfish. You've got shot makers everywhere, and you would just onslaught people with your movement off the ball and your willingness to share it, and multiple guys can hurt you. So there's some of that. This isn't the Golden State Warriors. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. However, it's a fun brand that I think, and Grant wants him to rebound better and be more physical and be better on defense and all those things. But yeah, and you haven't really played anybody yet, so
No,
but through 3 games, that's I guess my takeaway.
I think I have a very similar takeaway. It is a fun brand, and to your point, they share the basketball extremely well. I think 57 assists through the first 3 games, and that feels opposite of where you were last year. You had a point guard or a guy that brought the ball up the floor a bunch, and he was looking for his own shot basically all the time. And it feels very different this year. Again, 3 games, but you're sharing the basketball extremely well. 22 of those assists have come from Darian Williams, who's basically a point forward at times, and you've only got 1 game with the guy who was second in the nation in assists per game last year, and Elijah Hawkins. So I like that, but also this team can flat out shoot. You've got a great shooting team. 48% from three through the first 3 games is extremely impressive, but it doesn't feel like necessarily a BYU of last year where this team completely has to live and die by the three. You've got an inside out game, and I think that's what I love so much about your offense this year.
Yeah, and Darion is somebody that they trust.
Mm-hmm.
He just almost always makes the right play.
Mm-hmm.
He can do a variety of different things, and even though he got a technical foul against Wyoming, he can mix it up a little bit, but he's a calming influence, if that makes sense. He's
Yeah.
pretty even keel, and a lot of this is going to be new for him because he's going to be asked to do more. And I think we mentioned it on the telecast the other night that there's a certain composure or grit that he's having to learn as he kind of understands his a bit of a new role where because Grant will tell you, look, we kind of need him to be the man, although JT Toppin is kind of filling in there
Goodness. Yeah.
in some aspects too. But I think that Darion Williams is going to be asked to do more. And he's never really been on a team where he's kind of been the guy. He's always been semi looking at other folks, and now he's
Mm-hmm.
got people looking at him. And maybe Toppin can. I mean, you still who's the ball going to at the end of the game or at the end of a shot clock? Go get me a basket. And I don't know if we've seen yet if you can just feed it to JT Toppin and let him go to work and get that basket. I mean, and Darion may not be able to either. He may beat a team with the pass. But point being is these are some new things for some of these guys, and it'll be a process. But Hawkins and Anderson come in the other day, and they play it combined about 40 minutes
Yeah.
total, and they combined for like 16 points, 9 assists, 5 steals, 1 turnover. I mean, it was just a lot,
Sure.
and it allows you to be this deep, skilled team that I think that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to see continue to watch it grow.
Yeah.
And Emily Yalaho will be somebody that you can incorporate in it just a bit if you ever need more post presence or there's some foul trouble issues and things like that. He's more of a developmental player, and I think that internally they must see a lot out of Federico because Grant really talks him up, and I think is trying to instill confidence and feels like there's a lot more for him to give. But as a lob threat, I mean, Elijah Hawkins, he had, we mentioned those 9 assists that the 2 guards combined for in their debuts, but 3 of those are just dunks to
Toss it up.
I mean, to Federico off the pick and roll. And in fact, I think actually one of them was not a lob, it was a behind the back pass on a
Nifty
break.
pass, man.
Yes, it was. It was. Elijah Hawkins is very savvy. He's he's a smaller guy. But he plays to his strengths. He's one of those gnats that he's extremely quick, and if he gets in traffic and you bring the ball down and he's guarding you, he's going to play the ball low, which is what guys like that are so good at.
Yeah.
And he's just he's really handsy. So Anyway, it's been fun, but there's bigger tests coming. But yeah, Pine Bluff won't necessarily be one of those.
Right.
But later in the week versus Brooklyn should certainly be, which is it's that time of year.
Yep, we're already there to those multi-team events. Before we
Mhm.
get to that, one more note on or thought on Tech basketball. I was kind of just looking over the roster level, and as good as you were last year, as much success as you had in year one last year under Grant McCaslin, where you finished tied for third in the league, finished fourth in the standings, I guess, with the tiebreak, and as much success as you had in that first year, it's hard to not look at this roster and say you have upgraded or you look better in almost every position on this basketball team than you did a season ago. You agree or disagree there?
Okay, so there's a few things because I mentioned the end of the game. The one thing about trying to replay, and I get the with like Pop and Joe, who led you in scoring most
Mhm.
of the season last year, and kind of you went as they went, and then you mixed in
Sure.
Darion, you mixed in Warren Washington, and all those things, and Chance McMillan. The thing about Pop and Joe were that I'll say this: I appreciated their toughness.
Hmm.
I think their willingness to want the ball. We haven't seen this team put in that position yet
True.
on when it's time to go win or
Sure.
time to you're on the road and it's a 10-0 run and somebody's got to get it stopped and you've got to get to the free throw line or you've got to do something. And I don't know if we know the answers to this team, or on this team yet. And there's something to be said about the toughness of wanting it.
Hmm.
And again, I get the shooting numbers weren't great and the inefficiency, if you want to argue it that way from an analytics standpoint, was not great at times. But there's a mindset and there's a toughness that comes with that, and we'll see kind of who emerges
Yeah.
here for those guys. And then I think just Joe's junkyard dog aspect to him, I think is very underappreciated because he was your best on-ball defender.
Hmm.
And you think about it now. You think about some of the guards that are in this Big 12 conference and the size that they will.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
talking point guards:
Yeah.
Lipsy, DeJuan Harris, L.J. Cryer. I mean, it just goes on and on. Roach at Baylor. I mean,
Right.
these are
Right.
6'2", 6'3", and Elijah Hawkins he's 5'10", 5'11". And so, but Joe was like, "Don't tell him he's not the toughest guy in the building,
Yeah.
because he would fight you." And so that is something that I'm still kind of wanting to see or kind of curious about. But I don't disagree with your premise. I'm just trying to bring up
Sure.
a different way to look at it, because I think that for all that Pop and Joe maybe weren't, they were a lot of things too, and a lot that helped you overcome in some cases. But I'm not going to miss one of those guys going 2 for 11 from the
Right.
field or anything like that, or a 0 for 6 from deep or whatever, and maybe forcing it
Yeah.
a bit at times. There's some of that you mix in, but I just think there's something to be said about what I brought up too.
Absolutely. And like you said, there were games you kind of went as they went. There were games where Pop and Joe absolutely won you basketball games last year. And there were games where they felt like they lost you basketball games by shooting you out of it. So I think what I'll be more excited about if you have that guy that's got the killer instinct, and we haven't seen that yet, haven't seen the opportunity for it yet. I think what I'll be more excited about is just maybe some more consistency where you're not having
Yeah.
to lean on, I mean, where you do have just a deeper team
And you've
overall.
got a few more options.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's a few people in the rotation that have some upside that
Hmm.
if they realize that, I think it elevates the whole thing. And
Hmm.
that's Kevin Overton and Devin Cambridge.
Yeah.
Um, because I think if they really embrace their role and if they
Hmm.
play it well and all that, it should just elevate everything. But uh, Yeah, I mean, I think I know what I'm going to get from JT Toppin in most nights. I think I know what I'm going to get from Darion Williams in most nights. I mean, I think Kerwin Walton is still somebody that can go for 24 or he could go for three.
Okay.
Just depends on, and that's what it'll be fascinating as you get into this is what decisions people make when they try to figure out how to guard you.
Right.
Do
Right.
you want to double a guy like Toppin? Do you want to really take away Walton? And then that opens up, other shooters. Because what I do think will happen eventually is I think that people will leave Elijah Hawkins open and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, you score. Like we're not going to let you beat us with the pass. Like you try to carry this thing offensively. We're gonna just bait you into shots and some things like that. So there's some different dynamics on how you'll be defended that that I think will be interesting. And Elijah Hawkins may be good enough too. I mean, I was in the
Sure.
mid 30s from a 3-point shot last year, but he's a smaller guard. And Grant has great experience with utilizing some of those guys, specifically Tyler Perry at North Texas. But and the guy with the most upside on your entire team is the freshman. He's
Yeah.
got a chance to be special, and I don't think people have really seen a glimpse yet. But we talked about it on the telecast too. When you visit with Grant about him, it's like, oh, he's a real one, and it's like he's earned the respect of his coaches very quickly because I mean, in some ways, to draw a football parallel, I think you hear the way that Will Hammond is discussed internally
Yeah.
and the way they talk about him publicly or whatever. And when you earn the respect of your teammates and coaches rather quickly, and they kind of play the same position, just different sports, I think that goes a long way because that's the hardest thing to do. When you're showing up early, you're staying late, you're very serious about your craft, you're
Right.
mature beyond your years, and you're not acting like a true freshman.
Yes.
Yeah, coach, I'm sorry I was late to the meeting. Or, hey, coach, so what are we supposed to be doing here? Or, hey, man, sorry I got a parking fine because I was parked in the wrong place. I mean, just
Right.
all the knuckleheaded stuff that could potentially come with a young, immature player in these situations that can, I don't know, be entitled or whatever. These two are opposite of that.
Yeah.
They are very wise and mature for their age, and it's impressive.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of reason for excitement for this basketball team. Now, as we sit here, we're recording this before the Monday night game. So you've mentioned Arkansas Pine Bluff. Not a lot to preview there. It should be a pretty cut and dry game. People are most interested in what you've got on the other side of it. A road trip to Brooklyn where you'll play against St. Joe's first, and then you've got a game. Um, sorry, you've got a game either against Texas
Or
or
Syracuse.
Syracuse.
Mhm.
So St. Joe's is a kind of a funny team because they've beaten Navy and Villanova
And lost to Central Connecticut State.
and lost to Central Connecticut State. So that's kind of surprising. But on the other side of that, Texas and Syracuse. This should be a fun event in Brooklyn, no doubt, though.
Yeah, and that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, it's supposed to be, a situation where, if you just don't want to show up to this deal and be the 0-2 team, somebody will.
Right.
Somebody will be that, and you just want to go get one or two wins and then keep pushing forward. There's not a lot on your non-conference schedule that you shouldn't be able to handle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying you're going to roll through this thing undefeated, but because we don't know who you're playing on Friday. I do think you should fare well against St. Joe's. Doesn't mean that you're going to win. But DePaul is part of the Big East Challenge. They're not very good. Haven't been very good at all. And then obviously Texas A&M is a team that you get in Fort Worth,
Yep.
and they've dropped a game to UCF. They may be, without knowing who you play on Friday, that may be your toughest test. And I
Maybe.
don't know like I said, who you'll get on Friday, but
Who do you want on Friday?
I mean, I think it'd be fun to play Texas, don't you?
Okay. Yeah, I
I mean,
do too.
it was
I
it
think
was
either
a
option's pretty fun, but yeah.
sure, but it was I think a couple things. if you play Syracuse, it's going to be a road game.
Yes, it
So
will.
so you
Yeah.
Probably don't want to like root for that
Yeah.
per
Yeah.
se. And I think I'd like to get the bad taste out of my mouth from just getting embarrassed by Texas last year in your building when people were throwing stuff and Brock Cunningham was acting like a complete idiot, and all those things, slamming Darion Williams into the scores table and then going palms up like, what do
What
you
did I
mean?
do
I
wrong?
didn't
Yeah.
exactly. I'm
Uh,
just playing hard. Um,
that
yeah,
guy.
so we'll kind of see what this looks like, but there's a chance you could fare pretty well here in the non-conference.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think so. So, yeah, the of course you can hear all those basketball games on Double T 97.3 with Level will be you are making that trip to Brooklyn, right?
no,
Oh no, you're with football.
I'll be
Duh.
with you in Stillwater.
Duh,
Yeah,
you're
this is the
we got
yeah, this
Stillity
is
coming
the
up.
that's right. This is the difficult time when too many things are happening at the same time and have to make or a choice is made for me.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So, yeah.
So, well, that's a perfect transition. Of course, we'll talk more basketball as in the coming weeks as we continue to get into those bigger matchups in the non-conference. But football is we've gone through another bye week. Obviously, it feels like a little air was let out of the balloon for Tech because I think this is how it is now with the expanded college football playoff. If you don't make it to or when you kind of get eliminated from contention of getting to that Big 12 championship game, or if you're out of the college football playoff contention, I think there's going to be kind of a deflation every year for every team. Not saying that bowl games or getting to certain bowl games isn't important, but it kind of feels like, man, missed opportunity. You'll feel that way. That being said, you still do have a chance to win 8 games. We talked about it last week. That's something you haven't done in 15 years. If you do that in the regular season, but I don't even know what to make of this road trip to Stillwater because it's the worst team in the Big 12. On paper, there's no question that they have had the worst season of anybody in the Big 12. But I'm still, cynical Tech fan in me, still still nervous because that's always been a tough place to play. Should I be
Yeah,
nervous?
well, and you there was a game back in 2005.
Oh yeah.
That's what this trip reminds me of. Is
Okay.
that I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe this may have been Mike Gundy's first year.
Okay, take it easy, brother. You need
I
something?
think I think you might be right. Yeah.
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 Okay.
I think you're exactly right.
And you went to this game or went into this game. I think 8-1,
Yeah,
and I think
your only loss was to Texas at that point.
Oklahoma State was 3-5
Mm,
on the year
hmm
at the time. And you went up there, and I think you were fairly heavy favorite, and just played a terrible game. And
Yeah,
it wasn't, I don't believe this was televised. You just kind of kicked it around, and it just was a flat deal. And that's a Tech team that was, I think, ranked in the top 15 at the time, and they would go on to play in the Cotton Bowl versus Alabama that year. But yeah, that's so I have that in the back of my mind, and that's been nearly 20 years ago. Just to answer your question, so I just think you have to be, and I don't know what you mentioned the deflation. I mean, that may come with some roster changes as well. In that
yeah,
you're not going to sacrifice anything in and not try to win.
right.
But if you take a look at or a longer look at some of your younger players, it's not going to surprise me a bit. It's just not. So,
That's interesting because that was one of our questions. I'm trying to figure out who asked it, but someone did ask us, Level, um, if you have a slow start from Baron Morton in this game, is there a chance that we see Will Hammond at all? 'Cause I'm not. I know you're talking about everybody, lots of younger players, but that one specific, is there any chance we see him in the game?
I think more or potentially some Will Hammond, obviously more Micah Hudson when he's healthy, more Jacoby Williams, more Jacob Ponton, more I don't know, maybe some Eddie Smith,
Hmm
Charles Anderson on the defensive line. Um,
And part of it, Level, not trying to cut you off here, but a lot of these guys with 2 games left to play that have only participated in a couple of games, some of them you're past the red shirt status. So like
Oh,
you
yeah,
still get to red shirt them.
yeah, you're there's no consequence here at all.
So
You're gonna do whatever you think gives you though the best chance to win.
right, right.
But like I'll just tell you right now, like is it gonna shock me if they trot out Jacob Ponton to start at left tackle after what
Mhm.
you've kind of trotted out there in the last month?
Yeah.
No, it's just not.
I mean, you've
I'm
dealt
not
with
saying that's
injury
what
there
will.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what will happen, but you can already tell they're putting him in there a little bit anyway.
Mhm.
And now, he can still maintain the red shirt and all those things.
Yeah.
And if you can get maybe Taj a few more, some more rest or kind of, manage him a bit better,
Right.
because he's broken the record and he's got a pro career. He's trying to, worry about all that stuff. So
Sure. Sure.
yeah, Will Hammond factors into that as well too. But if they feel that Barron gives them the best chance to win at that time, or whatever, then that's what's going to happen. But if yeah, there's some struggles or anything like that, yeah, there's no ramifications for pushing the Will Hammond button either.
Right. Right. So yeah.
And maybe that looks like red zone or just kind of being purposeful about including him on occasion too. Maybe some I don't want to say gadgets, but maybe there's a way to incorporate him in just the normal game anyways. Just to keep him
Sure.
engaged and keep him kind of progressing and all those things. Not necessarily pushing the button
Yeah.
on making a switch or anything, but just maybe like, hey, let's put him in here for these situations because he's better at it or gives us a better chance, something like that.
A question from the Zach man says, do y'all have any news on the Micah Hudson injury?
No, he was on the sideline versus Colorado with a boot on. It's a lower leg injury. I think with a bye week, it would shock me a bit if he's suited up and ready to go in Stillwater.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of see what that looks like. There's a lot of injuries in that Colorado game. Reese Burkhart comes out with his arm in a sling and a big wrap on his wrist or arm. Mason Tharp left this game, did not return, never saw him. Jalen Conyers appeared to get dinged up a bit. I'm forgetting a lot of Justin. I think Justin Thorne, is that right? Backup linebacker, the freshman linebacker Justin Horn. Is that?
Horn.
Yeah, yeah. What did I say? Thorne?
Yeah, that's all good.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I added the T. But he was on crutches and did not look good. And so yeah, there was a lot going on there. So I don't know what the injury report will necessarily look like. And I'll say this too. I'm just not convinced. I don't know anything, and I'm just going off of what I'm watching. I just don't know how healthy Barron is.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think he's been hit a lot
Yeah.
in recent weeks, and I'll just leave that there. But that's just watching it and some of the throws, and he's just been hit a lot. Unfortunately, and that's what else is interesting. It's like everybody, yeah. I mean, we agree that your offensive line has struggled mightily. Yeah.
I think everybody agrees there. Yeah.
Put the freshman QB out there and let him get banged around. And maybe the
hasn't
thought is
put the weight on since
yeah,
high school. Yeah.
and maybe the thought is his legs can kind of help there a bit. And I wouldn't disagree with that premise. But anyway, it's just lots of problems there.
Yeah, I am curious to see if Hammond would be, even game planned like you talked about, just working him in a little bit. And I think obviously you're trying to get to 8 wins this year. That's the goal. But you also
you're trying to get to 9.
You're trying to get to 9, 8 in the regular season. That's the goal moving forward. But at the same time, you are still building for the future. So any bit you can get these younger guys some work in, I think that's I wouldn't be surprised to see quite a few of them get some good run over the next couple of weeks. And so Oklahoma State, as we kind of wrap this up, Level, this OSU team, this has maybe been there's been a ton of surprises. I don't think I've ever seen a preseason poll be as wrong as it has for the Big 12 this year. And it's not just the media. I mean, most of us, or anybody that didn't vote in the media poll, it kind of reflects how we thought the league would go versus how it's gone. There's been some major surprises in positive ways, and there have been some major surprises in negative ways. Obviously, BYU, Colorado being as good as they are is a surprise. But Utah falling to the floor and OSU may be the biggest surprise of everything. For them to be a winless team going into the final two games of the season is shocking. So, what in the world has gone so wrong with a roster that returned quite a bit from last year? What's wrong with this OSU team?
Yeah, it's a very bad old team.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a good combo.
but they were a good old team last year.
Played in Arlington for the
Yeah.
conference championship. They certainly did, and I don't know if everybody just adjusted. I think, and I hate to pick on him, but they're not very good at quarterback.
Yeah.
They're not good enough to overcome. They're not good enough to win games that way. I think everybody has basically said, "You're not running it. We're
Yeah.
gonna load this up, and good luck. Good luck beating us repeatedly with your QB and things like that." And I don't know if they've been able to do that. Alan Bowman, who's gotten pulled and at different times, he leads the Big 12 in interceptions thrown with 12. So that's their biggest problem. But then they think they lost Colin Oliver, who was kind of their version of Jacob Rodriguez,
Sure.
and
Is.
their quarterback on that side of the ball, and he's a legit player.
Yes,
He's
he is.
legit. Excuse me. And I think that has caused lots of problems that have filtered throughout of their defense. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think whenever Oklahoma State has been very good, they've been pretty good at QB. They've always been able to run it, and they create a ton of turnovers on defense. And they're not checking any of those boxes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, it's 05, which we talked about, and yes, it's 24. However, you take the meat in the middle of that. You got the piece of bread in 05 and the piece of bread this year.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been the model of consistency.
Yeah,
There's a
I
couple
envy
things.
them.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you would be puffing your chest out around here if you were in any way walking around like with what they had put together, all those 10 double-digit win seasons,
Yep.
New Year's Day bowls, and just this, what was it, 18-year stretch of a bowl game, and I mean all of it, and it was just rinse and repeat, man. They just
Yep.
kept figuring it out, but it's when you lose it, it's hard to get it back, and I because this is going to be quite the offseason there from a roster standpoint. There's not a QB waiting in the wings. They're going to have to really go to the portal. Mike Gundy has obviously kind of irritated the fans with some things that he has said. Is he still even there?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a rolling contract, kind of a lifetime deal.
Right.
So
Right.
it'd have to be his decision. I really am kind of curious there. But again, that's their problem. And you need to go in, and it would behoove you to start fast and kind of create some doubt early, because I will remind everybody, the last time that they had a bye week, they came out and they should have beaten the one team that's undefeated in this league.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to show up on senior day and all those things, and you just it's a kind of a no-win situation for you. You're going to be supposed to win this game. There's not going to be anybody that picks Oklahoma State necessarily to win it. I bet the spread isn't near as big as what people would want to assume.
Sure.
So anyway, it's just tricky. It's a tricky spot. But I would say that you just need to play well early, and then see if that you can carry that on through.
Yep. I hope so. We shall see. But Level, we will talk on the other side of that Oklahoma State game. I know always a trip for you because you get to see your daughter. So glad that you get that opportunity. But yeah, we'll talk on the other side of that one, talk some more hoops, because we will have a pretty big tournament or MTE, I guess they call it, in the books. So we'll get a lot more of a real look at this basketball team as well. So a lot going on, but appreciate the time as usual.
You got it, man. I appreciate you having me on, and thank you to Cantex Roofing for being a part of this one. And hope everybody enjoyed the old bye week.
Yes,
And at the end of the day, man, losing sucks. I hate the deflation aspect of what you talked about. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
There will be even more of this when you get to post regular season and prepare for a bowl, like it was last year, with a lot of people having to make decisions for themselves, not just players, but the team and all those things. And that's the hard part about what we do is you get in this. I was telling my wife this, late last week. It's like we get in this grind and this routine, and you're just kind of going week to week, and it's you're riding the high and then suffering through a loss or whatever it may be. But at some point, and especially more so now, at some point, with the way rosters are constructed and as much movement as there is in sports, because I mean, am I in the sports business? Yeah, but am I in the people business?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
And all the people just change so much, and that always tugs, and I hate that part because, I mean, I don't know if guys like Josh Kelly and Taj Brooks and some of these folks and Jalen Conyers that have pro careers. I mean, I don't know what this is going to look like now that you're kind of out of the mix, because I get it. They have to do what is best for them. Right. And so anyways, that part sucks. So anyway, excuse me. But anyway, it's fun time of year with a lot going on. So I'll wrap it up, and I appreciate you for hosting Coach Woodman, and we'll talk to you next time.
Appreciate you, Level. That is Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. This has been the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.